Welcome back to the AI Lancet, everyone. Ready to dig into some fascinating medical research with us?
Always exciting to get into a new Lancet issue.
Absolutely. We'll be breaking down issue 10423, published January 27th this year.
Full articles linked in the description, by the way, if you want to take a deeper dive.
Always encourage that. So let's jump right in. This issue had some really eye-opening stuff.
Oh, for sure. There's a study on oxygen therapy for critically ill children that I think will really surprise people.
Yeah, the OxyPICU trial, right?
No.
Led by Mark J. Peters and his team over in the UK.
Exactly. They had almost 2,000 kids involved, all on ventilators, across 15 different hospitals.
Wow, that's a big study.
Yeah, it was comparing two different approaches to oxygen therapy. One targeting standard higher oxygen levels, they called liberal.
And the other one going for lower oxygen saturation.
Yeah, more conservative approach. And get this, the kids in the conservative group with the lower oxygen levels.
They actually did better.
Well, slightly better, but yeah.
Yeah.
They needed organ support for a shorter time, on average.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Makes you really think twice about what we consider standard practice.
Right. Medical science is constantly evolving. Fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. And speaking of questioning the status quo, there's another piece that caught my eye.
Oh, yeah. The one about thyroid cancer care.
That's the one. It's a correspondence piece, actually, from Sam P.J. Van Dyke and Tessa M. Van Ginhoven.
Raising some really important points about defining quality in that area of care.
Yeah, they point out that minority ethnic groups and folks from lower socioeconomic backgrounds.
They often face more barriers to getting the best possible care.
Exactly, which is a huge problem. And it's why Van Dyke and Van Ginhoven are calling for standardized outcome measures, right?
If we could compare results from different hospitals in a consistent way,
it could help identify and address those disparities.
And empower patients to make more informed choices about their treatment.
Definitely. Now, for a bit of a shift in gears.
Where are we headed?
To the global economy. Believe it or not, it ties in directly with health.
Ah, right. The Lancet's editorial, this issue, focused on that.
Yeah, they're talking about the World Bank's warnings about rising debt in low and middle-income countries.
And how that could lead to cuts in essential public services like healthcare.
Oof, yeah, not a good situation.
Definitely not. The editorial argues pretty strongly against cutting health spending.
Makes sense, both ethically and economically.
Right. They even bring up a study from Lancet Public Health that found
that getting more education actually lowers your risk of death.
Yeah, each additional year of education is linked to a lower risk.
Huh, interesting. So education really is key.
Absolutely. It empowers people to make healthier choices,
And contribute more to their communities.
Exactly, leading to a healthier society overall.
But obviously, if countries are struggling financially,
those investments in education and healthcare, they take a hit.
The editorial really drives that point home.
It's a call to action for debt relief and a more equitable global financial system.
One that prioritizes health as a key factor in stability and prosperity.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to something a bit more specific.
Like surgery.
Yeah. Specifically, a type of cataract surgery called immediate sequential bilateral cataract surgery.
Oh, so they operate on both eyes in one go.
Right, ISBCS for short. And there was this really interesting exchange of letters in this issue.
About the pros and cons.
Exactly. John C. Lin and Paul B. Greenberg on one side.
And Darren S. J. Ting and John C. Buchan on the other.
Yeah, Lin and Greenberg bring up the issue of equity.
How so?
Well, it turns out ISBCS is more common among Black, Asian, and Native American patients in the U.S.
And people in rural areas.
Right. Places where access to health care might be more limited.
So one-stop surgery can be really beneficial.
Yeah, but Ting and Buchan counter those same groups.
They can have worse outcomes after ISBCS.
Compared to having each eye done separately, yeah.
That complicates things.
Definitely. The reasons aren't totally clear yet.
Could be differences in quality of care, underlying health disparities.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
But it really highlights how even seemingly straightforward procedures
have different consequences depending on the context.
Exactly. Now, on a more positive note, there's a study from the Netherlands
where healthcare access is pretty good.
Yeah, and they found that in their context, ISBCS is not only safe and effective,
but also more cost-efficient and environmentally friendly.
Right. Fewer trips to the hospital, less resource use.
Makes sense. So the verdict on ISBCS really seemed to depend on the specific circumstances.
It's all about nuanced approaches, considering the social and economic factors.
For sure. Now, remember those donor livers we talked about earlier?
Can't forget those.
There's a correspondence from John Hudong and colleagues about a new development in liver transplantation.
Oh, right. Machine perfusion.
Like They keep the donor livers functioning outside the body.
Yeah, pretty wild stuff. And it's not just keeping the organ alive,
It's like mimicking the environment inside the body.
right, allowing the liver to actually function and potentially recover.
That's incredible, like something out of science fiction.
Right. But even with this technology, not all livers are suitable for transplant.
Makes sense. So what's next for this field?
Well, researchers are looking at combining perfusion with other therapies.
Like defatting cocktails?
Yeah, cell therapies, even bioengineered liver scaffolds.
Wow, growing a new liver in a lab.
It's still early days, but the potential is huge. Now, for a more somber topic,
Yeah.
the ongoing conflict in Gaza and the role of medical professionals in that context.
That's a tough one.
It is. There's a powerful correspondence from Rogi Dagan and colleagues.
About the impact of the violence on health and well-being.
Exactly. It's devastating. Thousands of deaths, mass displacement, a full-blown humanitarian crisis.
And healthcare workers are risking their lives to provide care amidst all that.
Dagan and her colleagues argue that medical neutrality...
It shouldn't mean staying silent in the face of such suffering.
Right. They're urging fellow healthcare professionals to speak out.
Advocate for the health and well-being of Palestinians.
And to recognize that healthcare is inherently intertwined with social and political realities.
Powerful message.
Yeah.
And it's echoed by another correspondence in this issue.
Oh, yeah, the one responding to that letter that tried to justify the violence.
As a necessary war, yeah.
They shut that down pretty effectively.
Lucy Ginio Souza, Paulo Bus, and Santiago Alcazar, right?
Those are the ones they point to the immense human and economic cost of the conflict.
And they plead for health to be seen as a bridge to peace.
Not a casualty of war. They want global health professionals to work towards ending the bloodshed.
And supporting the recovery of those affected.
Absolutely. Now, shifting gears again to a topic that's often overlooked.
Which is?
Palliative care. Rachel Coughlin, James Smith, and Osset Alser wrote a really thought-provoking piece.
About the challenges of providing palliative care in Gaza, I imagine.
Exactly. Their argument is that just providing pain relief...
It's not enough.
Right. You have to address the root cause of the suffering.
Which, in this case, is the ongoing violence.
One of the authors actually works in a Gaza hospital.
So they're speaking from firsthand experience.
They are. It's a powerful reminder of the human cost of conflict.
And the incredible challenges healthcare workers face in those situations.
Coughlin, Smith, and Alser, they call for us to recognize the political factors.
That limit healthcare access in Gaza?
And to see advocating for an end to the violence as part of compassionate care.
Makes you think beyond just the immediate medical interventions.
To the broader systems that perpetuate suffering.
It's a lot to take in, for sure.
It is. This issue of The Lancet has been quite a journey.
From cutting-edge research to these really complex global issues.
A lot to ponder, for sure. And that brings us to a topic that tends to spark a lot of debate.
Oh, let me guess. Are we talking about sex work?
You got it. This issue has a correspondence from Esther Purim.
Okay, and remind me who that is again.
Someone with lived experience in the sex industry, and she's challenging the Lancet's previous stance.
On full decriminalization, right?
Exactly. Purim argues that decriminalization could actually backfire.
Interesting. How so?
Well, she says it can lead to the sex industry expanding.
And potentially more exploitation, not less.
Yeah, she cites places like Germany and New Zealand as examples.
Where, despite decriminalization, things haven't really improved for sex workers.
It's not the simple solution some people make it out to be.
So what does Purim suggest instead?
She's a proponent of the Nordic model.
Which focuses on reducing demand, right?
Exactly. Changing social norms, providing support for those who want to exit the industry.
So more of a focus on addressing the root causes, the underlying issues.
Rather than just assuming that legalization will magically solve everything.
Makes sense. Now, was there another perspective on this?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yosuke Suzuki and colleagues offer some insights from Japan.
Where sex work is basically decriminalized.
For the most part, yeah. And they point out how the internet has really changed things.
Made the lines blurrier between what we traditionally consider sex work and other types of sexual exchange.
Right. It's a whole different ballgame compared to, say, 20 years ago.
The digital age has created a whole new set of challenges.
For regulation, for providing support, for even defining what sex work is.
It's interesting how technology complicates these issues.
Absolutely. And their research in Japan shows that even with decriminalization...
Issues like poverty and sexual violence, they don't just disappear.
Not at all. So they really emphasize the need for comprehensive support systems.
Things like job training, stable housing, access to health care.
All of that is crucial, whether sex work is decriminalized or not.
Seems like the goal should be to create a society where everyone has genuine choices.
And opportunities to thrive, regardless of their circumstances.
Absolutely. We need to make sure people have the support they need.
To live safe and fulfilling lives, whatever path they choose.
It really underscores that healthcare goes way beyond just treating illnesses.
It's about addressing those broader social and economic factors. Right?
Exactly. Creating a society where everyone has a real chance to thrive.
Absolutely. Like we've seen throughout this whole deep dive into the Lancet.
There's rarely a simple one-size-fits-all answer.
So true. This issue has been a great example of that.
We had that groundbreaking research challenging the norm, like with the OxyPICU trial.
Questioning established practices for oxygen therapy in kids. Pretty radical.
And then those ethical dilemmas and complexities of healthcare during global economic struggles, conflict zones. Wow.
Heavy stuff, but important to talk about.
Definitely. And it wasn't all doom and gloom. There were some hopeful developments, too.
Oh, yeah, like that machine perfusion stuff for liver transplants. That's exciting.
Definitely gives you a sense of how far medical science has come.
And where it could go in the future. But it also forces us to confront these tough questions about
equity, access, what care even means in a world that's so interconnected.
This issue really packed a punch, that's for sure.
We only scratched the surface here, folks.
So do check out the full articles if any of this piqued your interest.
Links are down in the description, of course.
Always. Form your own opinions. We'd love to hear what you think.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think we should leave our listeners with something to chew on.
Oh, I like that. A parting thought.
Given all the economic challenges facing so many nations right now,
Yeah, that's a big one.
how can we make sure that health doesn't get pushed aside?
It's got to stay a top priority, no matter what.
That's a challenge for all of us to consider, really.
It's on all of our shoulders for sure.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Until next time, everyone.
This has been the AI Lancet. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the latest medical advancements and challenges.
Keep those brains curious and those conversations going.